meeting. I am not sure when I can get through the space for another one of the rooms for a public meeting. And I'm not sure what my schedule allows for either, because I am still staffing German as well.
Well, an alternative to that is to just be diligent and not get to that point.
Yes.
How about that?
That
I
sounds
think we
good.
can do 6 o'clock.
Let's do that.
Totally.
We'll gauge once we get to conceptuals and divide that time up
Mhm.
appropriate to what we have left, just so we can.
Somebody can always set a timer. One of the previous staff members used to do that with German Village because they were very bad at keeping time at one point. So if you can set a 10 or 15 minute timer and then be like, okay, we're not done. Well, you get maybe like a couple more minutes. And just,
I got timer, no problem.
We'll
Let's-
stay on it. Let's see how we go and, yeah.
and we do have a quorum. This is everybody that's gonna make it this evening.
Let's not waste any more time.
All right, I'm recording.
You're recording.
And are we streaming too?
I think that's, yeah.
Okay. All right,
Good?
we're good.
Okay, we will call to order the May Victorian Village Commission meeting. Our next business meeting will be Wednesday, May 28th, 2025 at 12 p.m. noon. 111 North Front Street, second floor, room 205, which is next door. Our next hearing, the June hearing, will be Wednesday, June 11th, 2025 at 4 p.m., 111 North Front Street, second floor, room 204, which is the room we're in. Swearing the staff.
Kimberly Bernard Sheehy?
Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, great. And then we'll do an introduction of commissioners present.
Belinda Shaw?
Kevin Parsik, Reed Sprite.
Tim Skinner. Any overview for the format tonight?
For the sake of time, I'm going to skip the overview and we'll instruct applicants as needed if we need to.
Great. And do we have any public forum?
No, not today.
Okay, great. We'll move on to staff approvals. If I can have a motion for that.
Motion to approve staff approvals. I'll second.
So we have a second. Any comments? All those in favor? Aye. None opposed. So we'll read through those as passed, but we'll read through those for any abstentions.
Right, and this starts on page 5, if anyone wants to follow along with 1195 North High Street, 140 Buttles Avenue, 209 West Third Avenue, 609 Dennison Avenue, 1223 Hunter Avenue, which
I will be abstaining
Is that-
from.
say,
Yes,
I think you're abstaining from that one.
yes.
1042 Highland Street, 369 West Hubbard Ave, 1155 North High Street, 641 Dennison Avenue, 793 North High Street, 789 North High Street, and the cap.
Okay. So we have the one abstention to 1223 Hunter Avenue by Commissioner Skinner. Okay, we can move on to approval of minutes from the last meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the meeting minutes from the April 9th meeting. I'll second.
Second, all those in favor? Aye. None opposed, motion passes. So we'll move on to staff reports,
Or, well,
Applications.
applications.
yes,
Sorry.
it's okay. So
Says-
we had a couple back in business. If that does it again, I think we're just going to have to go on without it or run out of pocket. But thank you for bearing with us.
Expect the jump scare.
If that works, automatic approval. Only that was how it worked. All right, getting back to the staff report after technical difficulty, the rear addition was approved in 1983. The window was changed to door at some point without approval, and based on the rear 1989 photo, the alteration of the door took place sometime in the 1990s at the earliest, and the existing door is not historic. Staff does recommend approval of the application, not based on the technical difficulties, with any and all clarifications submitted to HBO staff prior to issuance of a certificate. This is per City Code 3116.11, the standards for alteration, as well as the Victorian Village guidelines regarding windows and doors.
Okay, would the applicants state your name for the record, please?
Sure thing, Jennifer Zippo with a Fox.
Okay, David Marshall. Okay, so raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, I'll turn it over to you if there's anything that you'd like to add based on the staff comments.
No, I mean, you've covered everything. It's just a small balcony, casement that opens. The hinge opens 90 degrees and flush with the jamb, so that the full width of the entry or the doorway, if you will.
Yeah.
But it's just a more cost-effective way to do this, and it lets more light in the interior. It's better from the outside.
Okay. I'll turn it over to the commission for comments.
I guess my only question is because there's no window cut sheets, is the window one that's on the approved list?
There's no cut sheets. We sent them in. It's a hollow window that's listed on the approved window types, but if I had interior.
That's what it is.
It's just a full white, no grids, clear glass.
I remember seeing it as well, but I've seen a lot of windows in the past couple of weeks, so if it hasn't gotten uploaded, I apologize.
Should have noticed it.
Okay.
Okay.
It could be updated on the OneDrive and not in the file. But as did the commissioners might have it, but I do remember seeing it. I didn't remember the window being the cause for concern.
Yeah, so it's on the list.
Yeah, and if you want to make that a condition, based on the fact that we probably already have it, that's fine as well. Because as I said, I thought I remembered seeing it.
Yeah,
It would be my fault if it didn't get included in the materials.
it's not on the OneDrive, but
Okay.
yeah, it's on the approved list. I don't see any issues with it. There's nothing historic about this condition.
Yeah, I mean, I think we recognized at the business meeting that it's a unique condition, but it is what it is for existing and historic at this point, so I don't have any other questions or issues, again, assuming that the window is off the proof list.
Same.
Okay. Can I have a motion?
Motion on application COA 2500356 78 Price Avenue, to approve as submitted, with the clarification that the window is, comes from the approved windows list.
I'll second that. Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Who seconded that?
I said,
Okay, thank you.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. All right, application number 6 is 217 West Hubbard Avenue. Do we have the applicant here for 217 West Hubbard Avenue? All right. Based on nobody getting up for 217 West Hubbard Avenue, I will skip over this. We can always circle back to it. So do we have, I was gonna say the applicant here for 909 North High Street, and it doesn't look like that either. Not necessarily, because I have a feeling that some people just didn't get here right off the bat thinking some discussion would go further. But I do believe we have the applicant here for number 8, which is 836 Harrison Avenue. All right, this application is to remove and rebuild the wood stairs up to the first and second floor doors on the rear of the building and update porch skirting, the stair roof to have the heavy-duty membrane with the K-style gutter. Commissioners at the business meeting were curious of what was prompting the design change in geometry of the stairs. And the applicant clarified that the existing stairs are in poor condition and in needing to be rebuilt are required to meet current code. New stairs require a minimum 11-inch tread and maximum 7-inch riser, which lead to a reconfiguration of the stairs. The landing also had to be flush at the doors for code. Commissioners requested confirmation of the existing style of gutter on the house. It's noted that they typically request that the additions have gutters that match those of the existing house. The applicant is matching the existing gutters that are currently on the little porch roof that's over those existing stairs, which is an OG gutter or the K-style. And the commissioners had asked, is the concrete landing staying as is or will it be modified due to the new design? And that was clarified that the concrete landing will be redone. Staff recommends approval of the application with any and all clarifications submitted to staff prior to issuance of the certificate. And the basis for staff recommendation is City Code 3116.11, the standards for alteration, as well as City Code 3116.12, the standards for new constructions, and the Victorian Village guidelines regarding gutters and downspouts.
Okay, can the applicant state your name for the record, please?
Juliette Bullock.
Okay, do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, great. Turn it over to you.
Yeah, like she said, it's in really bad condition. I can walk on it, so, yeah. But, and it's basically almost the ladder. And since this is commercial, because there's 4 units, we have to follow the commercial code. So literally, this was the only way I could get it to even work, and because I have a very limited site as well. So it was quite the challenge.
Anything else that you want to add right now?
I guess just to clarify, what's happening is the landing is coming down flush with the alley.
Okay.
And then the stair will start at the alley elevation. You're gonna go up 7 stairs or so, and then you're on the first floor. And then you're gonna wind up to the second floor.
So the landing will start at the alley or edge of,
Yeah, right at the edge of that bench.
and then up
Go up. So it
to the
is-
stair.
The stair starts against the building, if that makes sense. I think it's always confusing in the stair drawings to figure out what's going on. I included 3 different floor plans on the second page.
Thank you.
Yeah, so the overall footprint isn't really changing.
No, it's just, paint code.
Comments from the commissioners?
Actually, I think I'm good.
One other comment I should make, I did do metal railings because of the proximity to the property line. I can do fire treated lumber, but to do the fire treated railing, I think they just never look good. So that's why I did that. It's just, so I know it's gonna come up when I submit it for permit.
This makes sense. The stair, how steep it was before, it makes sense to me with that configuration. No, it's on the rear of the property, it's not on the front.
Okay, so we do have a change in material from wood.
Yeah.
Pickets to the metal.
And it's bringing it up to current code
Yeah.
and the character of the original.
Okay, I agree.
The question of the gutters, with K-style being sort of the main building and the OG gutters on the back.
So the clarification,
Okay.
his style are also known as.
Yeah, it's half round.
Well, sorry, excuse me, the half rounds are on the main building in this case, right? That are staying, and the OG K-style are being replaced in kind as part of the work.
There's some OG on the main building too.
There is, okay.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a mix. I just decided to go with what was on the addition.
We're maintaining the shape of the existing gutters
Yeah.
in the
Because
replacement.
it's not
That's-
really next to it because it's a
Right.
parapet situation.
Right. I think that it's maintaining the same design.
Yeah.
Same overall ideas, right? I think it's, yeah, fine.
Okay, good comment. Right. Anything else? Can I have a motion?
Motion on application COA 2500387, 836 Harrison Avenue to approve the application as submitted.
Second.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Um,
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay,
Thanks, Drew.
thank you.
Is the commission okay backtracking a little bit? Because the applicant for 909 North High Street is here. So.
Which number is that?
7 Julie Weeps. So yes, it's number 7. It's okay. We have skipped somebody else before you, so we would have been right on time. So this application is to paint the exterior brick, stucco, and brick, stucco, and awning pewter green, which is a Sherwin-Williams color, and replace the salon loft signs with 909 salon studio signage for the submitted documentation. Commissioners noted the painting of the brick and awnings might be of a concern. HBO staff would suggest some additional photos of both so the commission could see the existing conditions a bit better. And I will note the applicant did submit them on Monday, but that's past my cutoff, so unfortunately I could not get them in for everything, so they exist, but I couldn't add them. HBO staff does not support the painting of unpainted masonry regardless of age, and often encourages applicants to paint painted masonry a stone color as applicable. That is not a hard and fast rule, but it's typically what we do, especially for lintels and sills. The structure has a 1949 building date on the county auditor site, but underwent renovations in the mid-1980s. Due to the extent of the alterations, HPO would consider the mid-1980s date as the structure's effective build date. The commission will need to decide if the building is historic and contributing structure. The size of the existing signage was approved prior to the short north design guidelines, and the commission needs to decide if the new signs should be grandfathered in to match the existing signs size on the building, or if they need to come into compliance. Staff recommends approval of the application with the condition that the unpainted masonry remain unpainted. Basis for staff recommendation is City Code 3016.11, these standards for alteration, as well as the short north design guidelines, including the general guidelines, wall signage, and awning signs.
Okay. Can the applicant state your name for the record, please?
Derek Bonard.
Okay. You swear to tell the truth, nothing but the truth?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll turn it over to you for any additional comments.
Okay, so, yes, the building seems very 1980s, just the way it's built, the way it looks. I did see some photos after the fact. It seems like most of the brick on the outside of the building is like thin brick. If you see through some of those photos, like that's all like peeling away. There's really no brick behind it. And then some of the angle photos from the sides, like underneath the windows, it's only like 3/4, less than an inch thick. So just the commissioner's understanding, it doesn't feel like it's a true brick building. On the right-hand side, which is probably not super clearly pronounced where the local bar is, that's all pre-painted CMU, 8-inch block. Behind the trash can there. So that paint's already peeling. It's this like pinkish bad color. So the thing would be to paint that as well. It's just that it's in really rough shape. I mean, we could paint it the same color. It's just doesn't kind of match what we're going for. So there's kind of previously painted brick and block there. And there is some brick where the smaller trash cans are, and there's CMU around the corner. So it's kind of an amalgamation of different materials. Yeah, so you can kind of see the gutters, CMU, where the parking ball area is brick. So we just want to give it one clean look. This is kind of the last parking lot in the short north that's on High Street. We have long-term plans of kind of tearing down the building, going something really big, which is not what we're bringing in today. So we're kind of just putting lipstick on the building, trying to get another 5 years out of it. We were not anticipating our tenant moving out. So we're kind of just trying to freshen up the space and get it to survive until, you know, a bigger planned development can happen. The signage, I think staff was recommending it, which I appreciate. We're basically just trying to take down what was there and match light with light with just slightly different names. Our goal would be to use that same green undertone, which is kind of this dark green in the 2 circular signs at the top. But if we can't paint the building, I think those could be black or different color if you guys need that, we want that change. So, all right, that's all I got.
Okay, great, thank you. Turn it over to the commission.
So just for clarification, the awning, I think it said, I have to check the notes here again, but are you looking to paint the awning, even though it's canvas?
Yes, so we talked with, Capital City Awning. We actually got something approved on the other side of the street yesterday with them. They think that they can paint it. Again, this is like a 5-year solution, and if we have to paint it every year, we paint it every year. To replace that awning was price of the car, so sure that they do.
I guess, do you want to start with the contributing structure?
Well, I'm
I think we should
curious,
Start with a question.
I'm curious if HPO staff, if you view thin set veneer brick any differently than traditional full depth brick.
We kind of lump all masonry
Okay.
together. I'm not necessarily going to die on that hill today. So if the commission has some good reasoning.
Okay.
And I know painting brick to match brick is impossible, as we can see by that kind of structure that has already been painted. That was probably painted to be a brick color. There's so much variation and that can be so hard to match.
If you pan all the way to the right of that photo, you can kind of see like there's a meter center, that's all CMU where that stuff is. So it's just, it's weird.
So I think the thin set in my mind is an interesting
Yeah,
factor.
it really does call up with, it's not historic masonry.
Yeah.
They haven't been making things that.
But do the guidelines make a difference in terms of whether it's historic masonry or, well, we have to decide about the building, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So that was just one factor I wanted to throw out there, but yes, determining if the contributing nature of this.
Well, but so it's old, it's old enough, so it falls in whether we like it or not, right? I mean,
It depends when in the 80s it was done.
It like mid to late 80s based on what I could see, and the 80s approvals aren't, they're a little scant on details, so I can't pinpoint when some of this work was done. And as we know, between, this being a district and like the early 2000s, we didn't always have the most consistent review and approval on some of the buildings. I can say this does have the same footprint from that like 1849 date, but we consider that 1980s date just by looking at how extensive those renovations were. Because if the historic structure is there, it might very well just be a wood frame, and they could have done one of those like storefront renovations, so they just kind of put a different storefront and some of that.
The steel structure had 87 and 88 dates on them. I don't know if that means anything to the commissioner or not, but.
It's not 40.
Yeah.
okay,
So, yeah, potentially of an age, historic in its own right, is that, but there's also the contributing features, whatever they may be or not be.
what's the structure language for in terms of, if it's not historic, but still replacing materials like, you would still have to do that. Or, you mean, it's not replacement, you're using that as the guidance about painting. I don't know, it's a slippery slope once you start painting any brick. There's not a path I really am interested going down. So I don't think it ends well for us in terms of precedent.
Well, and some of the rationale for not wanting to paint brick is that it really doesn't perform very well over time. as evidence to the other flaking paint on the property, right?
But the brick itself is also flaking because it is a finished material, not a true masonry.
Well, fair. You know, it looks like there's
I think
drainage
that's the
provisions
key.
at the bottom of that wall.
That's the key factor for me. You know, I appreciate maybe the long-term aspirations for this site. I don't think we can, at this stage in the game, maybe consider that as much. I think we gotta be careful there of, you know, how long this will be in place. I think we recognize that, but yeah, I agree it's a slippery slope, but I think there are some potential justifications.
Well, I mean, we had a late 1970s, early 1980s building recently, right?
Mhm.
Where it was a veneer course of brick, but I think it was full brick, but it was not a brick building. And we went around and around with that applicant about because he's painted it without approval.
Right.
So, and stripping that off and all kinds of things. So I think just for consistency.
That one technically did fall into the time period though.
Right. I mean, well, this one, we're talking about matter of a couple of years potentially, one way or the other, right?
I mean, if it's 1987, then.
But so what precedent would that set for a non-historic, like the condos there on Hubbard or whatever, just something built in the 90s and someone says, I want to paint my brick and it's, you know, one course thick,
Well, this isn't even one course.
right? But I guess, I don't know, would we ever approve a new build with veneer brick?
And this is closer to being siding than group painting siding.
I will say, you don't all have to agree.
Yeah.
I know, right? That's a novel idea.
And if it's off to the conversation, you could always drop poll things as well to see how the applicant would like to move forward. If, you know, perhaps continuing the painting part might help with those additional photos or some additional materials as suggested at the hearing. Not that I necessarily want to draw this on, but if it helps, you know, what both people get, you know, kind of the full view as well as feel comfortable with whatever choice that they're making.
Let's put that component to the side for a moment. Maybe move on to the rest of it, the kind of painting of everything else, the signage. Do we have any concerns or comments about that? So we're looking at a maybe non-conforming to current standards, but a grandfathered like for like signage, and then the painting, the other components to freshen up.
We haven't grandfathered in other signage unless it was historic signage.
Right. That's the type here. Is that something?
So that hasn't come up yet in my tenure of staff in Victorian. That would be a question I'd have to ask HPO themselves.
Because I mean, if we're saying the building's not historic, then the sign is historic, which means in my mind, the signage has to be current guidelines. But there's no grandfathering, but if you know, you can't play the grandfather in
Yeah.
two ways. It's either the building's historic and
Well, we're more to what's our date on the sign guidelines? That's
But I look at it as a new sign,
yeah.
like this is not replacing the existing sign, like
right.
it's a new sign.
I thought this signage did go through commission,
It
like in
did
the,
the 2010.
yeah. So and I know that, so it's the same size, different types,
Right.
but it did get approved in the 2010s.
So we blame Jeffrey. Well, let's start with painting. I'm okay with painting. If the canvas, if the awning people think they can paint it,
Yeah.
it's fine. It's in the stucco, I don't have any strong feelings. So,
So everything except the brick masonry.
yes, everything except the brick. Yeah.
And that is pretty typical for what we would really allow.
And the square signs or the square around signs are okay. It's the one that's like 30 feet long.
Yeah,
That we have never, to my knowledge, if we decide that size.
So the materiality is different. So this canvas on each side of it, but it's like a aluminum panel in the middle of it, so we were just trying not to, just trying to reuse something that's already existing. So we can make the text smaller, that's what the commission would like, but there's just gonna be kind of a weird dead spaces on the sides. And I would love some more clarification on the masonry that's already painted, that's peeling. So sorry, that's.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
that's fair.
That's important. We'll definitely come back to that. So the intention is to leave the panel for that sign up, but just change the graphic that's on it.
To stick on, yeah.
I mean, I don't even, like, if you're gonna paint the awnings, I mean, if you can get a vinyl that's the same dimension that was there, in that same color or whatever, and then you still just shrink down the text, I think that would be fine. We have to shrink down the text to fit within the guidelines.
I would agree that it seems like that's a reasonable kind of solution here to stay within our guidelines.
Clarification, what is the width, the total width, guidelines? It's 30 feet, I'm just trying to figure out how much it's shrinking.
It's a square.
It's a square foot, that's what I thought, it's not a length.
I think
Yeah.
I'm seeing 25 square feet.
Yeah, are we considering this a wall sign
More
because
than
it's on the?
50% of the, yeah.
Yeah, I would say. it's-
I would consider wall sign.
Okay. Then the 25 square feet is correct.
At a width of, not more than 50% of the storefront. Looks like it's exceeding that in its presentation here.
Yeah. And the number of signs, because this is the same, it's not different businesses. You get a blade sign, which is what the counts outside, right? So that, although that doesn't meet the guidelines either. But that's, I'm gonna call that existing.
Right. And I think so up till now, it has been multiple tenants. We're in a unique situation
It
where,
was changing the graphics, not, you're not changing anything.
Well, it's the number I just want, we get a lot of people that want to put the name on multiple awnings and things like that. Just want to be careful here. We say if they're separate, what's the rule? If they're separate awnings that can have them? I know,
You're looking at me and you should be looking at.
I-
the
I came ill prepared.
It was previously approved, sorry, just to vote the mayor.
Also, you can reference your staff report.
Oh, yeah, I could do that.
and I think what we're just prepping and challenging is the previous approval, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, was that for signs that were for different businesses?
No,
it was
it was always
okay.
just like, I sat at the confirmed year, I think it was the early 2010s, 2010, 11, 12, something like that. Basically everything back on space.
Okay,
Each ground floor tenant space or building of single tenant occupancy may have one projecting sign and either one wall sign or awning signs. I love that. How is it plural and a singular? That's helpful.
Because you could do multiple awning sign as opposed to a wall sign.
One wall sign or awning, either one wall sign or sign. It's potentially plural. Okay, I'm gonna go with that and say it's got a plural in there. I'm fine. I just need something hanging on here.
So that's that, we're okay with the signs, providing that the text for the 35-foot one shrinks down to be.
Yeah.
would the applicant be amenable to that move? Okay. So it seems like we have consensus on that. So back to the painting of the brick masonry, point made on existing condition of being painted in some locations. So that one factor. Second factor that we've been debating is that said face brick versus traditional full brick. And maybe that's it. So, alternatives to not painting, would that be trying to clean the brick? We still have portions that I think, will remain painted on the facing side on the north.
So basically everywhere this hits the ground is like faded away to just CMU kind of material. You can see it worse there, but on the left of that truck. That deterioration's everywhere, so I just don't know what we can do otherwise, because it's basically strong concrete. If it's going to like ink or dye or anything like that, just
So it wasn't originally clay that said it was concrete that said stained look like brick.
it looks like it's almost like an ether seed kind of panelized thing. It's like one piece. It's like it's cement, but it's just
That
I'm
may
gonna
be
change.
The two.
it's like if you zoom in, sorry, if you zoom into the longer picture, there's not like breaked out more than brick differences.
If you look at this picture here.
So this,
Well, no, there's one with it where you can see the profile. Just
so that,
I've just never seen anything like this material before, so I can't.
there we go. Yeah, so the,
I don't
let's
think
see,
it has to be.
it is like a panel.
oh, yeah.
That I can justify on that basis. If
There's
you,
like a smoother edge to it on the back.
yeah, that's what I'm
of the
looking
building.
at. It's
That's-
something
that's
like,
big stuff.
It's a panelized concrete product with a brick pattern, not actual.
although I do want to be careful. Because someone could come to us with a new building and say, oh, I want this thing, and then it gets approved, and then somebody wants to paint it 10 years later, right?
Yeah, but I think if we clarify that, this is
It's the siding.
yeah, this is basically
We're treating it as,
patterned concrete siding that over time has lost its pigment.
Yeah.
Cleaning it isn't gonna restore that.
Would you throw in that it's a commercial building as opposed to a residential property?
It is a unique condition, a unique use. Yes, I would agree with that.
all right, I think you guys saw me.
It's, yeah, great dialogue. I think we have, I'm supportive of these right justifications that, in this unique property, seems like the right thing to do to set up for success and be within guidelines.
You want me to give this a shot?
Yes, please. Sure.
Okay, motion on application COA 2500376-909 North High Street to approve the application as submitted with the following conditions. We'll start with the brick. The brick can be painted, and then we're allowing that because of this unique condition where it's a panelized brick siding system that is deteriorated and can't be salvaged in any other manner. The signage, we are okay with the blade sign as an existing historic sign that is just going to be updated. And the signs on the two signs on the awnings have to be within the Short North guidelines in terms of size. So the larger of the two will need to be reduced to be within the square footage requirements. Having two signs is acceptable because they're on separate awnings. Did I get everything?
I have a question, but hold on a second.
Yeah, and I think, again, you mentioned the panelized, I think it's a panelized brick pattern.
I mean, faux brick.
Yeah, we call it faux
It's
brick.
not true brick.
Right.
Key to that is
As fictitious brick patterned panels.
Okay,
siding.
take whatever she said, put that in.
I'm gonna try real hard. Okay, I didn't want to clarify this. Are we considering this the blade sign?
Yes.
Okay, this is technically a ground sign.
Okay.
It's not.
It's not mounted to the building.
Yes,
Okay, fair enough.
and also I'm not sure of the date. I think that might be separate from the building, but
Probably older,
I haven't been able to confirm, so.
but either way, it would look very silly if you did something otherwise with that. So,
Okay. I think, Kimberly, are you,
I think so, and if not, I have the timestamp.
okay? And can I get a second?
Second that, yeah.
Okay, wait a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Sorry for taking all the time.
No, no, all good. Good discussion.
All right, not seeing anybody else enter the room. We are going to continue on and go back to number 9, which is 717 Denison Avenue. And if you want to come up while I read this off, this application is to repair previously approved exterior building alterations, including repairing in kind and or replacing the porch cornice, painting the windows and porch, adding iron handrail to 2 sets of steps leading up to the porch, replacing the front porch deck, and adding new handrails with balusters. And a slight alteration from previously approved work would be to also include replacing the concrete stairs up to the front porch and painting the previously painted concrete block foundation black beam, which is a Sherwin-Williams color 6006. The commissioners at the business meeting requested additional photos of the overall property. They would like photos of the front facade and from the corner so they could understand the full scope of work that has been completed and what is being requested. The applicant has submitted additional photos and those have been added to the meeting materials, which Mosaic is currently going through now. HPO staff will note that the words in the gable do need to be removed. The applicant will need to clarify if the windows were replaced in the 3rd story or if that's a future application. They appear to be boarded from the photos that we have. Staff does recommend approval of the application with any and all clarifications submitted to staff prior to issuance of a certificate. Basis for staff recommendation is City Code 3116.11, new standards for alteration, as well as the Victorian Village Commission guidelines on heat, and the Victorian Village guidelines regarding porches, and as well as the guidelines regarding fences and yards.
Okay, can the applicant state your name for the record, please?
Chair Hess.
Okay. Raise your hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, nothing but the truth? Okay, anything that you'd like to add based off the staff comments?
No, pretty thorough. Do I start with the windows?
The floor is yours. If there's anything further that you want to discuss that's not in the application or hasn't already been addressed by staff.
Yeah, just, there must be a misunderstanding. That's work in progress. So stated in my application between the 2 certificates from last year, what's been completed and what's still work in progress. The windows on that one side, the window frame is still there. I didn't move that. I just simply removed sashes so I could work on the windows. So the board is in the front too, the dormer. There are 3 window sashes there that we worked on too. And I'll continue working on all of these on the house too. So it's part of the scope that I'm already working on to and repairs needed and the counterbalance cords and broken. So every single window in the house is still original. And just like I've read, it's true that wood is not like today's wood. As bad a shape as these are, they're like iron. The wood is in not rotting, so I'm just preparing them before I put them, reassemble and put the paint on. So that's my reply to this.
Okay, great. Just turn it over to the commission for.
It's all that's in front of us then is that, I mean, right now is the steps, right?
Yeah, so the only new thing is replacing the steps.
Right,
And painting the porch foundation.
right.
And they're going concrete stairs to concrete stairs.
believe so.
Something that we have gotten a little bit of a habit of here recently with the concrete replacement is recommending the finish on the concrete. The traditional finish is a broom finish. That's kind of standard concrete that you see. There's an option for it's called a buff wash finish, kind of an industry standard. It's also called a micro etching. So either one, contractor should know. What that will do is it will bring out it's kind of a method of exposed aggregate, but without really exposing the aggregate. It's a very fine texture, but it gives it a little bit of aging essentially in terms of its appearance, and it gives a little bit of warmth to the color. So it's something that helps let it blend in quicker to the historic property as opposed to bright, shiny new concrete. So again, that's something that we've been trying to recommend as part of concrete replacement where it's appropriate. And in this case, where there's so much of it with those stairs, I think it might be a nice thing to consider with that
What's
replacement.
the treatment called?
Buff wash.
The concrete sidewalks around this building.
Yeah, and all those new sidewalks on High Street within the last 5-10 years, that's all buff wash.
I can't remember if I included it or not, but when I get the quotes in, if it's not too far off limestone, I was considering limestone. I'd rather prefer that, but price is gonna be a factor, so if the concrete's coming in expensive and not too far, I'm willing to spend a little more for
Okay.
limestone, so when I get to that point, I would assume it would be, as long as the dimensions are all identical, it would be, something like.
I mean, I think we're typically favorable of limestone for the stairs. I imagine the landings would still, I suppose you could do limestone slabs there. That's maybe less typical for that kind of dimension, but yeah, I think we certainly.
I would only be interested in limestone for the permanent place in the second staircase.
Second, okay, I see, yeah.
The plan now is like for like concrete.
Okay.
The buff wash concrete is fine.
Okay.
So was there any other staff concerns here that I'm trying to read between the lines on?
I do believe that I overlooked the painting of the foundation. I think this is one we typically recommend, getting more color to match, but I'll leave that up to the commission since I didn't catch it when I was typing the staff report up. I may have mentioned it to you for talking through emails of the color for the foundation.
Yes.
Typically recommend something that was more natural stone color. But I could also be getting your application mixed up with other applications.
No,
I'm doing double duty.
I enjoy reading all of them and learn, and I did see that recommended to somewhere, but not online. Although I have this color was approved for the downspouts because it matches the glazed brick, and the foundation is also that dark chocolate brown glaze. It's a bigger chunk of brick, so that's why I was.
Okay, that's a one.
That's why I picked that color, because it matched the foundation that wraps the house, and the porch roof is actually original to the house, but the foundation is a concrete block with faded paint on it, so.
And I think I'm good. It's submitted with the buff wash.
Yeah, I mean, and I think we can also with allow either the buff wash or limestone. Let's go ahead and get that in the motion. If it's something that you are still exploring that, we're just talking about the stairs.
We can kind of pre-approve the limestone.
We can pre-approve
Oh,
that.
if you wanted
that's
to
something
switch.
you're considering.
Yeah. Nice. Motion on application C, oh,
I'm
yes,
sorry, so you're about to make.
yeah, we're going to approve,
It wasn't even a part of all this. I did want a little more context. I was a bit surprised that I personalized my house with a moniker that has family meaning. And I just wondered, I didn't know that was in the scope of your interest.
well, it seems staff had some comments.
Staff noticed it.
Yeah, so we get, that's not in front of us to, I mean, we,
No, I do believe that would need to be a separate application. If it needed to be, but that also comes per the historic preservation officer that we would not support leaving that up there.
The historic preservation.
Officer, so my boss.
Well, I was hoping for a little more.
Yeah, so we typically don't see words on buildings, so we'd expect things to be painted historically that kind of one color with one or two accent colors, which I know some houses in Victorian have a couple more, so that's kind of the one color for the siding, then 1 to 2 accents. It's kind of standard throughout all the historic districts, with some exceptions, but we typically don't see wording on buildings and we wouldn't support it.
Okay, I agree. It's something you don't see often, although there is another house nearby that says Cocoa Lane.
I don't believe I've reviewed or approved that. It could also predate me, which doesn't necessarily mean I have approval.
Yeah, I enjoyed the personalization idea, but I respect. Which, like I said, it surprised me because I didn't read it anywhere. But
I mean, finding that also surprised me, to be fair.
what did,
Finding that also surprised me, to be fair. So that's something we see.
yeah, so anyway, just wanted to bring that up to get a little more feedback from you guys.
yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Yes, so motion on application COA 2500395-717 Dennison Ave to approve the application as submitted, with the clarification that if concrete is used, it will be of a buff wash finish. Alternatively, the applicant is also approved to use a natural stone if that is the decision you choose to do as you go forward.
For the steps.
For this step.
Those steps.
Thank you, sorry.
Okay.
I think with the expectation that the profile of those
Right, I mean,
remains.
Yeah, I would want staff to see it, if you switch to stone, make sure that that's submitted to staff.
Yes.
Then I'll second that motion.
Okay. Any additional discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
2 questions, I'm sorry.
Sure.
So the paint on the foundation is approved,
Yes, it is.
okay, and then the words you said, I would have to submit, but probably shouldn't.
You could submit them if you are covering them. Let me double check. That might be covered under what you've been reviewed for.
If there's some alternative to still express that.
I will ask.
Yeah, like I said, I'll take it down, but down at Chicago, I really enjoyed it. So, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and I'm just gonna double back just to make certain before we move forward. Do we have the applicant here for 217 West Hubbard Avenue? All right. So that means we can probably move forward with application number 10, 100 West 4th Avenue. All right, come on up. So this application is conceptual. This is for lower level window lintel replacement and door threshold repair to the original 1925 building to replace 7 sets of exterior doors on the building and hardware. Remove the chimney on the 1925 building and install a metal cap. Clean and repaint the cornice moldings and soffits in the north building addition. Masonry tuck pointing, minor masonry concrete patching and cleaning, and replacing window lintels. I meant to fix that. And windows and door frames would also be recaulked. Commissioners at the business meeting requested details of which lintels were being replaced, as well as which sets of doors they were struggling to determine how many lintels were being replaced, as well as where doors and lintels were located on the building. Now, the commission requested clarification on how the lintels would be replaced. There was some worry about the extent of masonry removal involved. They noted having a site plan that labeled the building and its addition would be helpful, and additional photos of the doors showing damage and deterioration would be helpful. There was some concern for the replacement of the decorated door, which was labeled A1 on page A103. As the commission noted, they would like to keep the historic details, especially the panel above the door. Clarification regarding the extent of the replacement of the doors would be appreciated. And the applicant has submitted supplemental information about the doors and the being replaced, which has been included in the materials. HPO staff does not support the removal of architectural features such as chimneys. We encourage their retention and repair per the city code. The chimney slash smokestack was proposed for removal at the Indianola Middle School in September of 2022. HRC, which is a different review body, noted that the chimney was a character defining feature of the building. They also noted that they received requests to remove chimneys on individual houses, and all applications needed to be reviewed in the same manner. The application was also reviewed in November of 2022 by the Historic Resources Commission with a revision that the smokestack on that property would be repaired. Since this is conceptual, the commissioners should offer design feedback that can be utilized by the applicant to further refine the proposal for review at a future meeting, as no action will be taken. Basis for staff recommendation is City Code 3116.11 with standards for alteration, as well as the Victorian Village guidelines on windows and doors. And I will note, since we are into conceptuals, and I'm also staffing German this month, the extended deadline to get on the June agenda is a week from today. I just want that on the record, and if you are planning on circling back after feedback, you know as well.
Hey, God, wait.
Yes.
I need to recuse myself for this one,
Okay,
which means you don't have a forum.
no, but you're staying.
I can't talk about this.
I know, but you're technically staying at the meeting, so we don't need a quorum to talk about an
Okay,
application.
I just can't.
No, so if you want to sit at the back of the room, if you want to leave, that is your prerogative,
Okay.
but thank you for letting me know.
Okay. Can the applicant, can you state your name for the record, please?
Good afternoon. My name is Lee Martin. I'm with CTL Engineering. I'm here on behalf of Kurt Keaton and the Columbus City School System to discuss their plans to essentially renovate the exterior of Columbus Gifted Academy.
Yeah, good.
The goal of which, I think at the end is to make it look basically like it does now.
Okay, great. I'm gonna swear you in real quick. Good. Do you swear to tell the truth, and nothing but the truth?
Absolutely.
Okay, please continue.
The essential, as was described, most of the work is exterior cleaning and tuck pointing, masonry. There's a considerable amount of lintel replacement work. The southwest corner of that complex of buildings is a 1925 structure. And you can see in the photographs, the lintels that are below that brick roll very corroded. They basically have no structural capacity at this point whatsoever. We initially thought that was two back-to-back steel angles, and then we found out the interior half of the wall is supported on concrete lintels that span those openings. So the renovation could be much less invasive than what was originally planned. And if we change the size of the angle that we specified, the only material that has to come out of the wall is the brick roll. The angle would be replaced, and then the brick would be replaced. So that's the intent of the lintel replacement, and that is around the lower level. I believe there are either 27 or 29 lintels on the three exposed sides of that building. The doors, including one on the front, are designed to look similar if not identical to what they're replacing. The ones in place are primarily wooden doors, with the exception of the east side. Some of those are hollow metal. They'll be replaced with hollow metal. I think the most significant ones are the one on the south side, which was originally the main entrance and exit to the building. And that door has a frame with a transom panel above it. The new door will have that relocated transom panel above the door. The other ones that are, I think, significant are on the north side of the building, two of the pair of doors enter and exit an auditorium, the other is for the hallway. Those will be metal panel doors, very similar to the wood panel doors that are in place currently. And then, as I say, on the east side, that's the newer portion of the facility, and those are all hollow metal doors with glazing, with the exception of one flush door on mechanical space. And those will look identical to what is there now in terms of replacing the doors and the frames and the side lights. And then it was the intent of the school district to take part of the chimney down, given its current condition. It's not functional. It's purely utilitarian. It wasn't part of the original design of that historic portion of the building. So I think it's a safety and a cost item as far as the school district is concerned. I don't think they were even considering aesthetics, but it will go either way. That's just their preference. That's why it's shown that way on the drawings currently. And then any other work is just basically minor renovation. It's not going to affect the appearance of the school, other than to make it look nicer. The condition will be improved over what's there present.
Okay, great, thank you. Turn it over to the commission for comments. I think certainly heard that where the row lock brick, when it needs to be removed, it's being put back in place.
Well, I had a question on that actually.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is the row lock brick being salvaged?
Yes.
Cleaned and then reinstalled, or is this being replaced with a similar looking brick as what's being proposed?
The contractor took brick out of one opening and was able to salvage all the bricks.
Okay.
None of them broke. So we probably won't be that lucky through the course of the whole project. So there might have to be some replacement, but it would be replacement of the kind of something that matches as closely as possible. And it would be branded around the whole building. It wouldn't be, we wouldn't take all the new ones and put them in one opening and make it stick out. Because as you know, there's variation in brick anyway. So we don't anticipate that being a problem. What we were originally, and what we originally priced in the estimate, is taking out a lot of the stone above that row lock. And now we find out we're not going to have to do that. So everybody's very happy about that for a number of reasons.
Okay. Well, I'm encouraged to hear that it's a salvaging of the brick and not trying to source a new made product to replace them with.
The plaque on the corner has a 1925 date. I don't know. I've not seen a plaque that is on the National Registry of Historic Places. It certainly could be if somebody chose to do that. To the best of my knowledge, it's not present. But we're certainly attempting to preserve as much as possible.
Great. And then you also touched on the chimney. And obviously, as we heard from staff, that's an item that is typically under scrutiny with that kind of alteration. So it sounds like that maybe there is need for something to occur to it based off of its current condition and structural integrity.
We don't think it's going to blow over immediately, but it's a structural concern.
Okay.
I mean, it's been in the weather it's not original to them. So it came later. It's one of the older additions.
Okay.
But then, like I said, they've replaced the equipment, so it's not used for it's not venting anything at this point in time.
Okay. Do you have any record of when that was added? So I know that it's not original, but still historic and.
No, I'm afraid we don't.
Okay.
Since those are not.
Yeah,
Records tend to be spotty.
I think we can assume it's at least historic in nature, and that it's
Yeah.
more than 40 years old.
Yeah.
So one thing I noticed on the proposed chimney cap, it's a different sort of profile than the little bit of sort of chimney cap that's remaining. I think I'd be curious to know what other people think. I'd be more supportive of just replacing the chimney cap with new material to help protect the masonry that's there, because it looks like what's on the top of the chimney now is falling apart and not in good shape.
Yeah, there's just a stone cap.
Right.
And what was drawn was simply a sloping metal cap, metal roof.
So,
So
so
we shed water, keep it out of that cavity.
I having recently done a bunch of chimneys, the contractor we had there who does specialize in historic structures, made a point that capping the chimneys actually can make a situation worse. Because it traps the moisture and like it just doesn't allow things to breathe as they should, which, because I asked the same question, we
Would
just
a,
cap
would a
these.
stone cap be better in that that's something inherently porous?
It might be, but I think, I think it gets preempted probably by the next point I was just gonna bring up, which is, yeah, we're pretty hard on chimneys in general, and I don't see us being able to move much on this, without, I don't know what the justification would be, to allow it to be, brought down and capped. That
Yeah, I mean, that I could see a scenario where obviously if it needs to be addressed, that, you know, a portion of it needs to be disassembled and then reassembled, that maybe it's not exactly the same height, but it's got to be pretty darn close, I think, for the aesthetic integrity of it. So I think we would look to try to match that as close as possible with any renovation to it. So I think, again, we're not voting tonight, but encourage, you know, as this moves forward to be prepared with kind of the justification to that, and or, you know, are there alternative options on your side for either leaving it be or repairing it to any kind of existing conditions.
Yeah, I understand, but I will communicate that from the city schools, and the justification will be, as I indicated, cost, the fact that it's not functional, it's utilitarian, it's not part of the historic older structure. If it was part of the original structure, I'd be advocating to keep it as well. We're certainly open to whatever the commission wants to do.
Okay. And I think the way that staff and we would look at that is, even though if it's not original to the first portion of the building and it's still historic in its own right, at this point, it is considered historic from our review. And you know, we're going to be scrutinizing the aesthetic value of that as a contributing feature, regardless of its function currently.
Certainly.
I mean, it's certainly pre-1985, right? I think we can agree on that. Shifting gears to the doors, well, I guess the lintels, like, we'll start with those. So it's all the windows on that building on the first floor, right? Just to be clear, the replacement of the lintels.
The windows are going to stay.
No, the lintels.
The lintels are going to be replaced and then stone put back in.
Yeah, but for every window on the first floor.
Besides the lower level, yes, sir.
Okay. Good there. And then, so the doors, you've got a few doors that are wood now that you're proposing to change to metal. Embossed metal.
On the north side of the building, yes.
So you know, the guidelines that we have, so we've got to stick with like for like materials. So if it's a wood door, it should remain a wood door. Doesn't mean it has to be that wood door. We would prefer, obviously, if the door could be salvaged, that's always the preference. But changing to metal would be that's, we would have to have some more justification to try to make that doable.
Yes, there's a long history to the door and window aspect of this project. It was actually a carryover from another Columbus school project where Schooley Caldwell had originally done design and research work, and we picked it up and carried it to the point where it is. So I can't speak to what the original intent might have been, but I can tell you that the replacing the wooden doors with metal makes sense from a durability point of view. I'm pretty sure that that's why it was chosen.
Yeah, I guess if we would ask that they consider wood as the preferred alternative. And also, we do need to see, because I didn't see any pictures still of this conditions, more detailed condition of, excuse me, photos of the existing doors. Because our preference would be to keep the original doors. So we have to justify why those would have to be replaced, even if it was a 1-for-1, in terms of salvageability. Yes.
Typically, yes.
We can certainly provide that.
Okay.
So I think what Commissioner Sprite is requesting is some like really close up.
Really
photos
close, yeah.
Of like, hey, this is rotting out here, this is damaged here. And probably something of like, this is door A7 and these are the associated photos of damage with it too.
Sure, correct.
We can.
Yeah. Is this something staff is interested in going out and taking a peek at for condition?
Staff could, and Commissioner, if we wanted to do a select commissioners as well, my only caveat would be, I know school is still in session and I would prefer to do a site visit when it's not.
Well, the school will be out prior to the next meeting.
True, but I'm thinking if we want to see something for the business meeting, the business meeting is what, the 8th? It's the last Wednesday of May.
And I think that they let out at like 3 or 3:30 over there. So if you want to do a late afternoon, probably could pull that out.
True, but that just, is that within my working? It might have to be.
Oh, you city employees.
Hey, I get here pretty early, but do you happen to know when school goes to, because I believe they wrap up before May.
I would guess, I believe it's toward the end of May.
Okay, I can confirm with some coworkers. I know we've got a number of people who have kids who are in Columbus City schools, so.
Yeah, May 29th is what.
Okay,
Yeah, the reason I suggest the staff visit is it's consistent with what we did for windows, people asking to replace windows. So just want to have staff's assessment.
yeah, I will coordinate with my boss on what the preference for this is, just because it's a public building, there are kids there, and we would like to very much just like avoid any issues.
Okay.
And I don't think we have too many schools in Victorian either.
Not very many. Okay, so just trying to be proactive on that step, which I think will help.
We'll everyone supplemental information prior to the next meeting.
Okay, great.
I
Okay,
think that covered all of mine.
does that give you enough information to know where we stand and
I move my understanding and concerns, and I will convey them to Kurt, and he will reply.
Okay, great.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right. So I'm just circling back to make sure, do we have the applicant here for 217 West Hubbard Avenue? Okay, that's perfectly fine, because I am then assuming you're here for 59 West Third Avenue. If you want to come up, I will start reading the staff report here. We had somebody that didn't show, so I'm just trying to make sure we're hitting everybody we need to. This is application number 11, which is 59 West Third Avenue. This is a conceptual application to add a brick patio to the backyard to tie in with the existing brick driveway, replace the existing patio door with a fiberglass door, same size and function, and paint to match, bless you, the existing outdoor paint color. Add 2 to 3 steps up to the patio door for the brick patio, material to be brick or rock-based stone. Landscaping, plants and stones to be transferred and used along the back fence and side yards. Commissioners at the business meeting requested scaled measured drawings of the plans They suggested using GIS, a home survey often found within the home purchase documents, or pulling site plan from the county auditor so they could better understand what was being proposed. They also requested the cut sheet for the proposed door. Commissioners should offer design feedback that can be utilized by the applicant to further refine the proposal for review at a future meeting, as there's no action taken since it's conceptual. Basis for staff recommendation is City Code 3116.11, the standards for alteration, as well as City Code 3116.13, the standards for site improvement, and the Victorian Village guidelines on windows and doors, as well as fences and yards. And since this is a conceptual application, if you would like to be heard again at the June 11th hearing, you have a week from today to submit revised materials based on commissioner comments. And Commissioners, I'll let you start.
All right. I'll have you state your name for the record, please.
Down Shepherd.
Okay, do you swear to tell the truth, nothing but the truth? Okay, anything you'd like to add to the material?
And just a quick for the record, Commissioner Sprite has recused himself.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me. My wife was here with materials and told me that I should come to the meeting to answer any additional questions. I think we've provided some additional information since the last meeting. What's in the materials here. Specifically, a sheet for the door, scale, drawings, that being on. Yeah. So to speak to the drawing, that sounds great if you compare the scale time there. Yeah. What we have is an existing fence. That's the thin black line at the top of the brick area there. Behind that, there's an existing parking area behind the fence. We have a double gate in that fence that swings open to a two-car stacked driveway that's made of brick. What we are proposing to do is to extend that brick area across the backyard, as you see on the right side of the sketch there.
And the intention is to use the same style brick?
Correct.
So the current walkway has a little bit of a jog to it, some rounded edges as it hits the porch there is the intention to kind of square that off per the proposed scale drawing.
Yeah, if you could put that on this. Just a photograph of the existing. Yeah, either one of those, that's fine. So, yeah, we intend to keep the right edge of this where it curves around the tree, that would all stay. There is a gentle curve there to the left that would get merged into the new extended patio area. Yeah, so what's on the left side there would all stay, the curve will stay, that planter bed. And then from about where that soldier row of bricks is at the top of the curve, that's where we take it over and
Straight over, maintain that soldier course as an edge treatment.
Yeah.
Okay. The steps, the material for those, is that a stone? What's the?
yeah, we're trying to match what we have already leading up to that porch. There's one picture that kind of slightly shows it. I think it is a solid piece of limestone.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah, so our intent is to match that. But we would need these two stacked pieces to get up to that doorway.
Okay. Any comments on the other component to this is the door, correct?
Looks like we're using fiberglass to replace wood in this situation. I know we've had discussion on fiberglass doors at the back of properties in the past. seems like that would apply in this condition, right? That it's appropriate to use because it's a backyard. Oh, I remember things from recent cases.
Yes, and most of the commissioners would like to open the discussion following code or guidelines closely.
Well, this is white, so would it be painted to match?
Yes, yeah, it's like a pale green color that's on that existing door.
I'd say
Our exterior trim.
confirm that this particular fiberglass can be painted, because not all, well, you can always paint it, but it doesn't always stay. So I would do your due diligence and make sure you.
Sure, I hadn't thought of that, I assumed it was, but I'll certainly check.
And the stained glass transom above is meant to be maintained also.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Any other commissioner comments?
I would just say on this site plan, make sure you include everything, including what there's an existing pergola, show that, note that it's to remain, just to clarify.
Sure.
And it appears maybe there's no modifications to the landscape material, plant material, but I guess clarify that as well if there's any intention to modify.
So overall, commissioners are supportive of this. Just.
Yeah, I think I mean, it's a tasteful kind of expansion to create usable space. It's not, I don't think it's overdoing it. Materials right.
I'm seeing on the staff report, maybe the application is proposing either brick or stone for the steps. I think I would be more supportive of stone since that is consistent with the front of the house. Just trying to flip through the guidelines to see if there was something specific to step materials. I'm not sure I saw anything, but I think I've had personal experience with other commissions that brick may sometimes be inappropriate for steps, but this is also a backyard. So, you know, I think stone would be more appropriate, but it's a lot of stone to do those three steps. So I think it would be good to the application just clarify what is being proposed.
Okay. So I think we're good. I think does that give you kind of some good feedback?
Yeah, my only question is about the rest of the process, I'm just not too familiar with what happens next.
So since this is conceptual, it's kind of a one shot. We can, like, it closes out when it's done, so you need to put in a new application.
Right.
If you wanted to use the same materials, like with the photos and stuff, you could. Sounds like the site plan needs a little bit of finessing to add some additional things, and you put in the new description. There's unfortunately no way to carry things over, and I know that portal is very tricky. So if you've got questions, let me know. We've got a week from today to do things, and so it's just taking the commissioner comments and kind of updating things.
Okay.
And I'm missing anything, please ask.
And that's a week from today to get on to the June meeting.
Mhm.
If you feel like that's not enough time, you can, you know.
Yeah, then there's additional meetings after that, but we work on a 4-week review cycle.
Okay, so yeah, I can turn it around, what, and then the June meeting would be conceptual
It would be for action,
or action.
yes, but I'm gonna caveat as long as you've addressed everything the commission wants and the materials are kind of up to par of what we're expecting. Because we have had some people that, okay, let me completely change my design, and that has to go back to conceptual, but I don't think that's gonna happen. So, and I'll try to work with you the best I can through the process, as I mentioned a couple of times. I'm also staffing Turnpike Village at the moment, so I'm a little busy. Trying my best to just tread water.
Sure, yeah, that's great, that makes sense, and then, assuming approval at the June meeting, I don't know. Does it would work like this require a city permit or if it's approved by the?
I don't
Or
believe it requires a building permit because this is.
You don't have any
landscaping.
foundations or electric, so you shouldn't.
Well, I know the COA says it's not a building permit,
Yes.
so, you might want to ask around some other folks.
Okay.
And I can provide you the contact for building and zoning, so you can
Just
ask.
to confirm to, yeah.
Yes, and
It's not required. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, commissioners, I'm going to ask for a quick break before we go on to what should be our last application. If that is all right.
That is fine.
All right, so we're going to call it a 5-minute break, but hopefully it's going to be less.
So we're doing again. So yeah, this one is a lot.
Yes. It's a great, I said, okay.
Looks that way.
Are there any mistakes that we,
It was, but it's not here, so.
if we didn't get to it?
Oh, shit.
Yeah,
I'll just go to the next meeting. We didn't get the materials. We need to really make some decisions on it, like anyway. There's the one where they took out the trees. Yeah, I know. Makes me go for another month.
All set?
Yep.
All right, this is application number 12, another conceptual application to demolish the back porch deck, privacy fence, pergola, 26 feet of the retaining wall on the west edge of the property, alter the landscaping to include removal of a maple tree and Norway spruce, install 2 off-street parking spaces to measure 24 feet wide with 540 square feet paved with 5-inch concrete slab at the rear of the property, including creating a curb cut and altering the retaining wall. New parking area to include electrical vehicle supply units. Installing new retaining walls to include blocks of the formal wall as well as Versalock blocks. A 30-inch high retaining walls to be built on the north, east, and south of the parking area. The north retaining wall would be 22 feet in length, with the west wall being 24 feet in length and the east wall 12 feet in length. Install a 6-foot-high privacy fence, which would be set back 18 inches to allow for a planting bed between the fence and retaining wall. The fence design would have a 4-foot solid board and 18-inch picket lattice panel above, and the back porch would be rebuilt to 5 feet wide by 14 feet long. Commissioners at the business meeting noted that they would be breaking down discussion points and working through the application as to what is appropriate and can be supported versus what would not be appropriate. If the application moves forward, an arborist report would be required for the trees which are proposed for removal, and possible tree planting would also be discussed if the application moves forward. HBO staff met with the applicant to discuss the application and portions of it that would not be supported. Staff considers the limestone curb and landscaping contributing historic features that should be retained per code, specifically 3116.11, the standards for alteration, and 3116.13, the standards for site improvements. During the meeting with HPO, the applicant mentioned that the neighboring property, that 2386 to 238 Collins, had a curb cut and parking area in the rear. The file was checked, and from a 1989 photo, the rear area appears to have been parking prior to that, and there is no approval on the file for that rear area alteration. The commission should offer design feedback that can be utilized by the applicant to further refine the proposal at a future meeting, as no action will be taken. Basis for staff recommendation is City Code 3116.13. These standards for site improvements, the City Code 3116.11, these standards for alteration, Victorian Village guidelines on fences and yards, and to be consistent with what I have been saying at the end of all the other conceptual applications. You have a week from today to submit additional information if you'd like to be placed on the June 11th agenda after commissioner feedback. So wanted to make sure you were also informed, but I think you've been here to sit through a couple of those. So I will hand it over to Commissioner Skinner to swear you in.
Okay. Can the applicant state your name for the record, please?
Donald Digron,
Okay. Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay. Turn it over to you for any additional comments.
Good evening, commissioners. I appreciate the time. I've owned the property for about 31 years now, so I've seen the neighborhood go through a lot of changes. Of course, coming home at night, everybody likes to have a parking spot waiting for, as you know, parking spots in this neighborhood, and the parking system that the city implemented has helped, but this particular area has a pretty tight parking system, parking area, parking availability in homes. So after 31 years, I thought I'd see what this opportunity would be like to create a couple off-street parking spaces within the property. This is the plan I'm proposing, and it includes the electric supply equipment. I think it's an improvement that replicates a lot of the existing features that I implemented in the retaining walls that were approved a number of years ago by the commission. That was the fencing and the stairs and the gate. It's pretty identical to the one that I built 25 years ago on the site. So, yeah, I'm happy to take questions and talk about the plan and see if there's any way to advance it for approvals later on.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Turn it over to the commission for comments.
Have there been any initial discussions with zoning about curb cuts? Because
No.
they're usually extremely sensitive about adding curb cuts.
Well, I have some transportation planning backgrounds. Curb cuts, I think, are a problem, arterials, highways, places where they create congestion. A curb cut on an alleyway, and alleys are kind of the capillaries of the system, providing access to buildings, deliveries, trash pickup, and everything. My whole property is elevated. I can't even, with the new trash cans that are on the alleyways, the city's kind of requested that we move the trash cans back onto the property. Trash picked up. I have no way to move a can that's full off my property and down into the alleyway. So I really have no off-street area that's street level to do that with. So that's just one example. In place to store the trash can on the property, dragging up steps. And deliveries, service vehicles, anything else. No off-street problems. So my argument to the city about curb cut, curb cuts are a problem. An interstate highway, major arterial, near a stoplight or something, that's when curb cuts become a problem, in my opinion. I don't know what the policy would be, stated policy, but curb cuts, are just, I wouldn't say curb cuts are a bad idea, just because it's a curb cut. But locate, it's, site specific. That's what I would argue.
And I agree that it's a valid argument, but I think Melinda's point I would assume still need to go through the channels on confirming if it was allowable.
The limestone curb, I mean, it's beautiful. There's construction, I can pull the curb out and save it. Yeah. That's the original limestone curb there. The gas company has a place where they have added the concrete there.
So with the drop that would occur, it would be, looks like you're gonna end up exposing some foundation of the home.
Yeah, that one corner of the house with the basement window that will be dropped. That backyard view they had up, this one there, so that window on the right of the building, the retaining wall would be directly along that line of the west side, the porch there. So it would drop down 30 inches of grade where it is. So the block wall, ceramic block of the foundation would be exposed. That ceramic block is beautiful. Whole buildings have been built, so I don't. Historically exposing more of that foundation block 30 inches below. And the bottom of that window would be exposed as well. With a lid like that, could be painted similar to the windows above it. But just that 4 or 5 foot stretch of wall would be in place of the foundation that's exposed.
So that is certainly something that needs to be considered. It's, not only from the structural integrity of the home, but the physical alteration of that exposure. And so it's not just the site improvements here. There are some kind of factors here to the home itself. Any plans for that is a wood deck on the back end?
With the construction, it would probably affect the footers on the west side, so. My proposal is just take the whole thing out and then rebuild it slightly smaller. It's currently about 6 foot wide by 18, now I take it down 5 by 14. So it's a newer construction, wood posts, and beams with wood deckings. That is not original to my house.
Does that have a COA? Because decks are not something that typically get.
Yeah.
That was their.
So, not that I remember.
Well, if you've had it for 30 years, it was there when you bought it, that explains it.
So at this point, decks are not something that are considered contributing for a Victorian era home. And so we are not typically approving those. Now, if it's obviously you're still dealing with transition out of the home, so I think there are creative solutions of kind of a porch or some kind of extension that helps you transition down, but we are up against with this. This is triggering a change to a feature that would not be approved in today's world. So I think that's going to be an interesting piece to this, is how that's redone. What's the correct thing to do there? How I think what's shown in the plan right now, it's pretty awkward how that how the new fence kind of wraps around and it creates kind of an awkward moment there. So it seems like there's
Read the plan.
yeah, that there's some resolution to how that all works. That would need to be considered.
How the fence butts up next to the house there.
Yeah, and then that little bit of leftover space between the fence and the deck component.
So it blended in some kind of railing around.
I think you could ultimately try to better integrate everything together as.
I mean, I think another way to put it is you might want to consider including whatever the plans are for the deck in this application.
Yes.
Because if you try to come back separately for it, you probably won't get it.
So decks are up on blocks or stone or something.
Decks just generally
Yeah,
on
it's
the
patios.
because it's considered more of a suburban feature than.
Well, I mean,
Historic.
it's true. Basically. Shoot.
Yeah, so patios or porches, honestly, looking at the photo of the back of the house, it looks like there may have been a porch there at one point.
There was.
So,
The original roof was open.
Mhm.
It collapsed.
it's
How do we treat that when there's been porch in the past? I've seen that come up. Where the platform is still there essentially, right?
Well, in this case, it would be replace it in kind. I think it's one thing, but as soon as you make alterations to its appearance and function, it kind of triggers a updated evaluation of it.
Well, that was going to be my other suggestion, is that if you if you don't remove it or in your application, if you do not remove the deck, that might be the way to handle it, so that, you know, just moving the stairs or something, you know, to accommodate the parking area, so that you don't touch it, right? If you break it, you bought it. So if you touch the deck, it's probably not going to be able to come back in its same form. So just trying to, give you the heads up on that.
So it's put back. A porch would look at the time. Or not a porch, but student. Transition.
Yeah, but we would have to be more of a stoop and patio situation. You want to put back a porch? I mean, that's an interesting idea, but
yeah, I mean, this is one of those things that you may be well served to present a couple different options you could live with. We found that to be fairly effective, so that way we can evaluate several different things all at the same meeting instead of month after month after month.
I think probably focusing on the other items is.
Yeah, so I mean, so if the idea of the parking and that cutout were to move forward, I think having a better idea of what the snowball effects of the rest of the yard would be are important. But let's get back to just the kind of main portion of this of modifying the existing wall that's there.
What about the removal of the two trees too?
And the removal of the two trees.
So, I mean, historic curbing, so that's an issue. But I think that'll be largely addressed by whether you can get the curb cut approved.
What was the issue?
The historic curbing.
Oh, so-
So that, but I think that's gonna be an ongoing issue.
I don't know that building and zoning's approval of the curb cut is irrelevant to the historic preservation.
Well, they won't care, they don't take any judgment on,
We, can consult with each other, but historically through all the conditions, we don't support curb cuts unless we've got good rationale.
I mean, public service has guidelines, I think, in terms of like, when there's utility work, like just they saw here with the gas, that they're supposed to maintain the limestone curbing.
Yeah, they do have a limestone curb bank, I know that much. Oh, dear. Ah,
We have 10 minutes.
Yeah.
That's our
Um,
reminder.
So there's that piece. The one thing I did notice, and I actually had to look this up because I was a little concerned, was the depth of the parking spaces. And so it is the bare minimum, the 18 feet, because my first thought was there's, as soon as someone wants to park a truck there, now the sidewalk's blocked, right? And 18 feet is, bare minimum.
That's why I did, one of the reasons I didn't cut the porch.
Yeah. So, I know it creates more of a problem, say, making it deeper, but, I'm not sure how to address it, but it is a concern I have, because it just,
But it doesn't meet the standard. 18 feet.
apparently, I don't know if it's a Columbus standard, but I looked up what a standard parking spot. Yeah, so, so it does meet what is required. I don't know if the city has any other specifics that they would require, but.
What's driving the width of 24 feet or 20? Yeah, 24 feet.
That's on the generous side, 2 parking spaces.
Yeah, 2 parking spaces would normally be about 18.
Yeah.
Wide.
Yes,
Yes.
they're about 9 feet wide, it's 9 by 8.
When you're kind of driveway, you're also gonna be nice. So having space, for trash can, bicycles. Loading vehicles.
Well, and I think in that matter, that as soon as you have a vertical obstruction, a wall adjacent to getting those doors open, and the minimum 9 feet will be a challenge. So back to the trees, we're usually kind of scrutinize, removal of quality, healthy trees in the neighborhood. So I think that will be a bit of a hurdle, with both like the maple tree is in the background on this image, right?
It's still, the one on the right. Yeah. It's a green, it's like. That's a small maple, shade bark, something. Doesn't get very big.
We typically require an arborist report of the health of them and then what the replacement plan is.
Yeah, so some kind of plan on just,
A landscape plan, a site plan.
well, both that, but also having an arborist take a look at the tree and kind of report on the health.
But then usually if you take out a tree, you gotta put one back. So what are you putting back?
Anywhere on
Where
the
is
property?
it? How big is it?
The property.
Yes, to be on the property.
We typically ask with near proximity, though sometimes the commission has allowed for different placement.
Allowed.
For different placement,
This property is pretty full of trees. So I could price this.
This is probably a deal breaker, but I'll throw it out there. Would you consider 1 parking spot instead of 2? So that you could just shift everything over, the parking spots deeper, the Norway spruce can stay. You don't have problems with the deck.
It's a duplex.
Mhm.
I rent out the other side, so. Finding renters on. the street. And doing all that work for 1 rather than 2. Advance the project. It still cuts up the backyard. I'd lose the backyard, but I'd have this piece of linear space. On one side or the other, and stay. Not sure that's really just bunches. That's a good part of the yard.
Well, it minimizes a lot of the disruption that we have to try to work through. So, you know, the depth of the parking spots, the deck that's gonna be impacted, the Norway spruce that's impacted. I just wanted to throw it out there. I'm not,
I thought about that.
Well, and even, you know, I think the thing to consider there is, you know, I think to the Norway spruce, I'm not usually a huge fan of preserving the evergreen, but that's kind of a cool tree in that location. It is contributing in a way.
That was planted by previous owners.
So I would challenge you to look at, you know, if that 24 feet became 22, or, you know, how many feet until we get into some realm where, say, preserving that tree might be viable. So I think here's where having some exploration and some options for us to be able to
Well,
vet out.
I think it's back behind the line of the retaining walls.
Okay.
Might be able to be preserved.
So we might be close is the point there.
It's gonna survive. Oh,
All those, yes, the disturbance. So I think that's another point where having kind of the expert come out and give some advice on what it would take in their mind to preserve that tree. One is what's the current health of the tree? If it's something that's at the end of its life, that's going to be gone in a few years anyway, I think that's important. But if it is
pretty big.
if it is going to be around for a while, what do we have in our what options do we have to try to preserve?
Making the parking less wide also no longer exposes the foundation wall of the historic house.
Right.
Right, so it's less modification to a historic building
You may,
today.
if you do keep it up tight to it, you may want to dig a test pit, because even though it's interesting looking block above grade, it's possible below grade that it either changes or it has waterproofing on it that you're never gonna get off. So you might want to think about just digging a small hole in that corner to see what exactly that block is looking like below grade.
What, I'm sorry, I lost.
The ceramic block to see how far down
Your
it actually
foundation
goes.
block,
Oh, yeah, well, it's exposed in the basement, so it's the same block.
it may not be on the outside though. And it may have something stuck to the outside that isn't gonna come off, you don't wanna see. So it might be worth
Maybe.
going out there with a shovel and just digging a small hole to see what's below grade.
I know my house pretty well, pretty certain blocks are consistent.
But it may also have something stuck to the
They
outside.
tarred it or something on the outside.
Usually there was some kind of waterproofing stuff on the outside, and that's not usually common. Which is why it's less. So,
Just a suggestion. right?
Yeah.
So. All right, did we hit everything? I think?
Yeah, I mean, the fence, it looks like it's kind of replacing to match the existing style. I think what's gonna be different is now gonna have a portion of it that, you know, right now it's cleanly contained. Now you're gonna have a portion that sticks outward of the contained yard. So I think understanding you no longer have a private side that, private side versus a public side, you have two public sides. So I think we'll want to consider what that looks like. Consider what that connection is between, right now it looks like there's a gap between the piece that sticks out and follows the drive versus the piece that defines the backyard. So should those be connected? Should there be a gap?
The gap between
The neighbor's
the
fence.
neighbors.
Yeah, so that is a neighbor's fence so you're not touching that?
I was gonna say, it's shown on as being on the other side of the property line, so.
Okay,
There's a picture. There it is.
Yeah. It's not, yeah, it's not.
Yeah, it's about 18 inches, I think, property. The post of that fence, and they've got that fence running all the way along the front of that property. And then it curves along the easement between the two houses.
okay.
You can see where I tried to attach my fence that I built 25 years ago to their fence. I just Yeah. It's probably, yeah, it's, I don't think. I originally had it open, but it just was a big exposed area in the backyard. But in this case, the fence is set back, not having the two fences need each other. It, doesn't quite better address the fact that two completely different designs. Putting one up next to the other, you get that kind of, well, it's something, but then I'm crossing the property line and doing work.
And this gets back to how tight everything is there, that, what happens in that space between the wall and your neighbor's fence, is that landscape somehow.
Commissioners, just to let you know, it is 6. I know one of the commissioners had a hard stop at 6.
Yep.
So if we want to wrap this application discussion up and then quickly continue number, I think it was 6.
So a lot of dialogue here.
Yeah, it's been good.
So hopefully that gives you some feedback and helps you keep moving forward. Seems like there's still a lot of number of things to address. And I think as we've mentioned, particularly, we appreciate the conceptual review that's very, very helpful, but, having a few options to explore and something that's so unique like this, I think is helpful.
Well, I appreciate it. And the time, I know. Sensitive projects.
Yeah.
We're trying to be sensitive.
And we understand appreciate the creative solution to, obviously parking is a deal here in the neighborhood, so.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, for number 6, do we just want to continue it due to the absence of the applicant?
Yes.
Right, who wants to make that motion?
Get a motion?
Just getting that up here. That was close. Motion on application COA 2500272, 217 West Hubbard Avenue to continue the application due to the absence of the applicant. I'll second.
Okay,
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Not opposed. Motion, application is continued.
all right, there is no old or new business. So that would wrap up our hearing for sake of time.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay.